Hey, bud. I'm not here. There you go.
You're listening to another episode of
delay.
Mr. Allard's Neighborhood. This is the place where you're entitled to Brad's opinion. And now for your host, Brad Allard.
Well, hey, everybody. My guest today needs no introduction. It is Victoria Johnson. Is it seat 3, place 3? One, whatever. I get those all mixed up. I mean, after a while, it doesn't, and it just goes into one. Anyway, everybody knows Victoria. This is about the third or fourth time you've been on the show.
Something like that.
Yeah, and I'm really glad to have her here because there's lots going on with Burleson, and she has some important perspectives on the bond issue, and also we talk about her background of the last year, what's been happening as far as being a member on the council and how it relates to being a mom and a wife and all the above, and how it impacts the family. And also there's a consideration before the council about expanding our liquor laws, I believe, and also any other issues that she probably knows more about than I would because she's where it's happening. Here I'm sharing it with the various groups there. I had several people that were interested in the bond issue, but we'll talk about that and have to talk about the sponsors that make all this possible. You know these guys. All right, thank you, Daniel, across at Burleson, 317 Southwest Wilshire. Check out the webpage for the memberships and the training programs, times a day, et cetera, et cetera. It's a pretty stout workout. So if you're looking to get fit, don't throw a fit. Go to CrossFit. You like that? I made that up myself. That's what he gets when he pays the sponsors, this kind of coverage. Also, Shandy at Shandy's Dogsville Realty Group. Everything is going well, I hope, over at I know the real estate's booming, and you can address that. Victoria, we're going to talk about infrastructure needs and how the growth in this area is just really putting pressure on the city to keep up with it and what we're doing to try to alleviate that problem. And now we're going to blame you for everything that's not your fault, really, like state highways and stuff like that. Do you get that sometimes? People say, you got to do something about this road. And say, well, we'd like to, but we can't.
Often. East Renfro and 174.
Right. That's what I was thinking. Anyway, I digress. Sorry, Shandy. Anyway, turning transactions into relationships. Also, Rex, the mayor of Eagan, the police state of Eagan. You know where Eagan is, don't you?
I do.
You drive through it, and I just feel like I don't know, they're watching us. But anyway, myfinancialbox.com. Hit the link, get to know him, particularly in these economic times, have to deal with all the ups and downs and what's going on overseas and whatnot. You need somebody to help you guide through this without getting all panicky. So Rex Russell can do that at the Russell Wealth Group. Also, thank you to Optavia and Kimmy Etheridge, 817-789-1622. She can help you with weight loss programs and weight maintenance programs and lifestyle programs. And she's a very sweet woman. And I'll see her tomorrow, I hope, at her networking group. And I know several people that have used Optavia, and they say it works. And it's not one of these painful diets you have to go through. It's you can live more or less a normal life. So 817-789-1622. Gayla Moores over at Southern Gym. You been to Southern Gym yet?
I have.
Isn't it nice?
Oh my gosh, she has such pretty jewelry.
Yes, she does. She was asking me, where is her? There's her text. She said that ask her what I should be promoting, and it's a ring in spring. That's her promotion.
Oh, cute.
Also Mother's Day.
Coming up.
I'm just saying to Philip, right? Is his name?
Right.
Philip needs to, get with the program.
I already have some plans for the next piece of jewelry.
No, do you? Well, she can help you with design, cleaning.
I know a lady.
Yeah, now you know somebody, and she's very kind, and she's also in the network group. This is also somebody you may know, Michelle Humphrey at the Hotworks. Haven't you done that before?
I work out at Hotworks.
Well, tell us all about that. You probably could describe the workout better than I can.
It's different. It's hot,
and
it's concentrated. But it's 45-minute workout, and then there's also some HIIT workouts like cycle and there's something similar to an elliptical except it's seated. It's called Blast, and then there's a rower which I've not endeavored to try.
Well, it's all with infrared,
but
right?
Everything's in an infrared sauna. You burn a lot of calories, but the best part is you just warm up. It's heated, so it's easier on your body, and I don't feel as sore after a workout, and it's just like I don't need that stiff warm-up period. It just warms you up and you get right to it.
Well, I found out a couple of people will go and throw the iron around at CrossFit and then go and kind of, relax the muscles or what Hotworks. They do both.
It's a good stretch.
Yeah.
It's one of my favorite
Or vice versa.
But vice versa, yeah.
Yeah, they use both Hotworks and CrossFit.
I think it's one of those workouts that it's not, you can combine it with pretty much any other thing that you do, whether that's running or it's CrossFit or lifting, whatever that may be. It's just a good partner workout.
And she's also with the BNI group I'm in, so I'll be seeing her tomorrow, I hope, too. Anyway, I guess the first thing on my mind would be the bond issue, because that's been bandied about in the council.
Sure.
And I could try to describe it, but since you were there, I'm going to let you describe it. But from what I understand, the bond issue was for an expansion of the police station. Was it for a new or an expansion of a fire station?
It's for the Fire Station 4, which would be a new station.
Okay, where would that be if it ever comes about?
In the west part of town.
Yeah.
So we're growing. That's the area that we can predict the most growth is coming our way. Really, it's moved to the center of town, but it would, so currently, like Bluebird Meadows is a good example of you have to go through Joshua to get to it. It's almost like an island, but it is in our city limits. And so our service should be, it's first responders, and it's a difficult area to get to, but as we grow to the west side of town, there will be more cohesion. And so the idea is to have a fourth station that's more located in between, like the Hewlin extended area to 1020 and
well, particularly since Justin Bond's group, Rocky Branson's groups are building that massive
that's a very good example of why the need for extending our services, that our services are growing that way already. So it'll just be beneficial for them to have, instead, I think the goal is always to have a 7 to 10 minute response, be able to get to an area within 7 minutes. And so with the growth that is happening out that way, we can expect, in particular, just with Chisholm Summit, something like 3,000 rooftops.
Wow.
So we're going to need, the fire department's going to need to be able to access them a lot quicker.
It also, this bond would include some infrastructure improvements. What I saw, on the stream and whatever, and discussed with a couple of people, they had a 4-3 vote, and you were one of the negative votes.
Correct.
And the 4 were Payne, Stanford, the mayor, and Dan McClendon.
Yes, sir.
And so you were one of the no votes. And then 3 days later, you were asked to rescind that vote, and you still stuck with your no vote.
Right. Those are two different issues.
Right. All right. Well, I'll let you explain it, because I'm not trying to, I don't want to characterize it inappropriately. You tell us what happened.
Right. Well, I don't support the bond measure as it stands. And there are two different bond proposals. The first is, one is the roads and infrastructure. And so there's a list of projects, and all of this is available. Our communications department has done a phenomenal job listing out. We have a page dedicated on our website to the projects that have been included in this letter of intent. And so there's a number of different road projects, from putting in design funds for one or construction of another. And I think that was an issue.
Design funds, particularly for where the roads are going and what, 2 lane, 4 lane, et cetera.
It's kind of broad. It says, we list out some street projects, and then it says, for the design, for the engineering, for the construction, for the purchase of right of way, for any of these particular projects. And I think that that's really, it can be confusing for voters. I have a concern that, if I'm citizen A and I see that 174, for example, is listed on this bond, it can be confusing to say, oh, does that mean you're extending 170? Are you expanding 174? What does that entail? And
can you expand 174? I mean, that's...
As of right now, we do not have control of that roadway. So what the particular dollars that are in this bond package for 174 include design. So in particular, that project that funding identified for that project is solely for the design of it, which is not in our control. So we're just hoping that if we spend some money on the design, that it will bump up its priority in TxDOT's world. And in my eyes, I just think that can be misleading and confusing to voters, because if I see a project listed on something, well, what's your assumption? That road's getting addressed or fixed? And are you going to dig into all the details to determine, oh, well, this particular project was solely for design. And this particular project was actually going to be constructed. And this one over here is just for the engineering. So it's really, you're really going to have to dive into the details and pay attention to what of the projects listed are actually, we're asking to accomplish with those.
So it sounds like that if you voted for this, you're afraid that you'd be misleading people into thinking that 174 will magically be expanded and painlessly, of course.
I think it can. I think that can be a
Yeah, and
misconception.
that really that 174 is out of our control as of now.
As of now.
And I bet you, as a council member, if they talk to you about any one area of infrastructure in our community, it's 174 around the the Walmart school building, that whole shopping area. I bet you probably heard more about that than any single piece of infrastructure in Burleson. And it's out of your control.
Yeah.
Second one is probably the expansion of East Renfro. And then we got this, two major housing developments coming down that road. Does this bond address East Renfro, or is that also not something that's really part of it?
East Renfro is listed on this. And again, it's one of those, we don't have control of East Renfro. So I think my first priority as a council member would be to get control of the roadways in our town. So
is that possible?
We are in conversations. We have been with
Okay.
TxDOT to take over the maintenance of 174. But that's still not confirmed. It's still not official. It's not in our, it is not ours yet. So those conversations are ongoing. And I just feel concerned that we're misleading voters because, I'm elected to be a voice and I'm put in this position to do the homework and do the due diligence and then, speak for the voters that have raised concerns about project A, B, or C. And so, how often does a regular citizen have time after they work and they take care of their families and they commute and all of these things that are impacting us every day, have the time to dig through and say, oh, actually, the fine detail says that this particular project is only getting the engineering. So that was a concern of mine, and I voiced that in council.
Okay, now, is it possible, therefore, it sounds like your main objection to the bond is not the expansion of the police station nor the fourth fire station. If they were able to separate the road component of the bond, would that be a more doable thing?
So I have reservations about the second piece of this is a public safety. And while I have the utmost respect and appreciation for both our fire department and our police departments, and I fully support them, I'm torn on this one. I don't believe we have fully vetted all of our options, and we have lumped two department needs in one public safety request. So we're saying for $52 million, we're going to resolve issues for two different departments with two very different needs. And there are still outstanding conversations that we need to have, in particular in regard to the police department. So whether this passes or fails, I acknowledge that I still have a duty to the citizens, even if I don't support this bond measure as it stands. It's not saying I don't support the needs of the police department or the needs of the fire department, or that we need to address 174, or that we need to address Hewlin and I acknowledge these are needs, but are we going about them in the best manner, in the most transparent way? By lumping two departments' needs together, it's almost like we're putting the cart before the horse, in my opinion. We're saying, give us approve this $88 million bond package, and then we're going to determine all the details after the fact. And in my opinion, I would like to go maybe with smaller, more specific, identified projects one by one and say exactly how much that's going to cost, and then take that to the voters. I feel like there's too much ambiguity. And it has even been stated that, okay, well, if we get into this and we find out that the police department needs a little more here or there, well, then we'll take from the max is $52 million in that particular public safety piece. And so are we fully addressing all of the needs of the police department, and are we fully addressing all the needs of the fire department if we're combining them and not knowing specifically how we're going to spend these funds? I just don't think we've thoroughly vetted all of our options. And there are still, want to go back to saying that there's still outstanding conversations. One of the items that we have yet to really dive into is the topic of the jail. And currently we contract with the city of Mansfield, but at any time, Mansfield could say, we no longer have space for you, so within the next year, you're going to need to find a new partner. So as part of the next year's budget, I've already requested that we look into funding. We put aside funding for a police department master plan and a jail study, because we need to understand, what are all the needs of the police department. The unfortunate thing is the police department has been in this building for something like 7 years. And what we now know is, or what we've known for a little while, is that the square footage of what they have started out under what they truly even needed.
Right.
So we tried to fit a square peg in a round hole. And in my opinion, I'm wondering if we're still doing that. Are we trying to expand the current? Is that the best use of our funds? Are we just still trying to fit a square peg in a round hole? Let's expand the current location, but it may not still meet all of their needs. Are we truly vetting the need for it? Are we growing in a way that will require substations? As part of the fire station 4, it's also in like a sideline, and it can include office space and a smaller substation for the police department. But is that, if we haven't done a study, if we don't know all the answers to what police needs, how do we know that just adding on another 5,000 square feet to the fire station 4 is truly the answer? I just don't feel like we fully vetted everything and thoroughly examined all the things that each department needs and how to specifically address them. And I would have felt more confident had we done that legwork and then came to the voters and said, we believe police needs an expansion. They need more space for X, Y, and Z. Here's the police option. And we know that we're going to need a station for the fire department on the west side of town. This is what we believe this will cost. Another piece of this is we're committing ourselves for 5 years. So I've heard other council members even say this, that we know that the fire station 4 will be needed. But in my opinion, do we need to commit ourselves on paper when that station could be? So we have if this passes, we have a timeline for when these funds will expire, when this committed number will expire.
Right.
And I can't say, given that we don't have enough rooftops yet on the west side of town to necessitate the fire station being built, is it appropriate to commit ourselves today to funds that we may not need in 5 years? Maybe it's 7 years that we need to build fire station 4. We know it's coming. We know the development's coming, but if the rooftops aren't there yet, is it appropriate to go ahead and commit ourselves when it's basically asking for this credit limit and we don't quite know fully how we're going to use it all, but just go ahead and tell us that we can have up to this amount to spend. Okay. And we picked this number because right now we know, looking at charts, and I can post this in the comments later, there's a chart that shows, based on what we currently pay in our debt rate, we will, as we pay down existing debt, if we continue collecting or continue at our current debt rate, the capacity is going to grow. So the number of 88 million was picked because we know we don't have to raise the tax rate.
Right. I was going to ask why that specific, and guess that answers that question.
Yes, we don't have to raise the tax rate. It doesn't mean your taxes aren't going to go up.
Right.
But we don't have to raise the tax rate.
As long as property values are rising like they are.
And we have to be upfront about that. We are assuming that we can pay off this debt based on an assumption of a 3% home value appraisal increase. So
that's a modest estimation, because I look every month at,
right.
I get the Zillow thing and all this other stuff, and it's going up more than 3%.
Right. So even though, we could even lower, let's say, whether or not we're talking, aside from the bond, if we end up lowering the tax rate after in this coming budget year, your taxes can still go up. And so we're relying on at least a 3% increase to be able to return to pay back this $88 million.
Well, you left me a lot of questions here about, I'm a veteran of bond issues with the school district.
Right.
And when we were issuing bonds for like a new elementary, the details were not nearly as specific as what you're describing. They're just saying, okay, we need a new elementary school.
Sure.
And they didn't specify in detail how much will be spent on rooms. I mean, they had a plan, how much will be on technology, how much was the estimation of the construction, the kitchen equipment. I mean, they had those kind of things in the bond estimations, but they weren't hard and fast figures. Is this one of the things you want from the police and fire station in more concrete figures?
What I'm concerned about is we have two different departments combined in one under $1 amount. And considering I've asked for a jail study, what if it comes back that we do need to determine an alternative for our jail? And where does that go? What does that look like? I just don't feel like we fully vetted everything that we needed to look at. Now, are we truly answering all of the police department's needs? Or are we going to just put a Band-Aid on it with, this is how much money we have. We have $52 million and we need to split it between these two. And we think we can make do with this amount, but are we still just like sticking a Band-Aid on it?
Right. Well, it's obvious.
I wanted to hear, even if it was crazy, even if the numbers were crazy, what does it look like if we sell that building and completely relocate? What are all of our options? Because we know they need training. We
Valuable
know that
piece of property.
We know that they need training, but so does fire. And something I mentioned in a council meeting, but it's kind of too late. It was this ball was already rolling to explore. But other cities around us have, joint fire communications and police department public safety headquarters. Is that something that maybe we haven't kicked around enough?
Well, that's what it's obvious that you want this fire and police capacity of Burleson to be expanded. I mean, so
Yes.
It's not some goofy
Right.
ideology, and I hope people don't take that to extreme. But it's obvious you want a better police and fire safety situation.
Right.
But your concern is, from what you're telling me, is that you think that we're going into this somewhat unplanned and we're not going to be
Right.
prepared to deal with the contingencies that may
Yes.
arise from this.
Yes.
Well, I guess when I'm looking at school bonds, in school, whatnot, again, they weren't specified in great detail. And I can't tell you, because I was on the committees that formed the bonds. I can't tell you about the implementation of the funding. That's something the administration dealt with.
Sure.
But I do also know that when you go to the community and say, we're going to do this X, Y, and Z with this bond, you better actually do that and not be shifting funds around, because then you could be accused of acting in bad faith, I guess. Because I just remember that some of the bond issues, we went through, and people wanted the detail you're talking about. And we, as a committee, would say, we can't foresee every detail. If you want a specific cost on this school that we're trying to get past, we can't tell you that. And we can't promise you that something will happen between the issuance of the bond and when it starts to actually break ground, that some catastrophe happens, like a war in Ukraine, causing a great deal of distress and pressure on raw materials and commodities, et cetera. Is it reasonable, I suppose, is the best word, for people to expect it to be in that detail? Or is it not really something that they should have some latitude about how much money is being spent?
I'm torn on that.
Sorry.
Yeah, I do. I definitely think that there's an element, you're going to have a little room for contingency. And I believe that our city staff has accounted for that. But what I'm concerned with is fire department just released a master plan a few months back. And so we know that they need a fire station and this is generally the area that they need in it. And we have recently taken on we intend within 17 months to take over ambulatory services. So we know we'll need such and such number of bays to appropriately have space for an ambulance, for the fire engine, so we know that. But I don't know, we know that police needs room for training. Okay. But what else have we thoroughly looked at everything that you're going to need for the next, not just 5 years, but 10 or 15 years? Is it a substation? Is there room for, do we look at separating? Do we look at a big, in my opinion, these are things that I wish we had considered and dug deeper in. And in some ways, I thought there was a bond committee that was put together, and they were given, a list of projects, and it's like, okay, $88 million is our target number. Well, within I think it was their fourth or fifth meeting, the information comes back to them that the estimates for the police expansion for the fire station for were going to be significantly higher. So now they need 149 or 150 million, but we need to stay at that magic $88 million number to not raise our tax rate. So they were put in the position to cut things. And honestly, at that point, I wish it would have come back to council and said, hold on, let's pause. We know these estimates are extremely higher than what we were anticipating. We were thinking a $10 or $12 million expansion for the police department, and now it's looking like this number. And oh, by the way, we may need to consider a jail. And oh, by the way, but that didn't come back to us until it was one full recommendation. And the committee did a wonderful job of working through some of these things, but that's a lot to put on a committee that met 6-8 times, and they're 15 members. And, every meeting we're educated on a new thing that needs to be bumped to the top of the priority list. And so things shift. And my fear with the roads is that these are things that should be looked at and evaluated every single year. And you as a taxpayer are expecting, if you have a huge pothole, that's going to get addressed, that it's going to be added to a list and prioritized accordingly. But we're saying, but we're approving a bond for 5 years. So are we saying that your road, since these conversations have started, I see on every kind of comment thread, hey, well, how are they going to look at my street? And then I go look over there. I'm like, well, you have a fair point. Your street could use some assistance too. So are we? And I think it's also a paradigm shift. I've heard Councilmember McClendon say this. Like, he says the city of Fort Worth puts all of their streets to the voters. But I don't know the answer to this. Do they do it every year? Because that would make sense to me. Of like, in the next year, we're looking at these projects. Voters, what do you think about this list of projects?
Yeah, you'd probably not get the kind of participation you think, but you'd get a lot of the belly aching that goes with it when you chose something else.
And you brought up a very good point of voter participation in local elections is historically low.
Right.
So say your road really needs to be addressed, and we're leaving that to 1,000 to 2,000 voters to determine whether or not your street gets fixed.
I don't see any good outcome of that, to tell you the truth, because you'll have a motivated group of voters that want their street fixed, and the people that may need it the most
aren't necessarily participating or know about it.
Or even know about it and all this other business. And it could be used as a vehicle to direct funds to a certain segment of the community or a certain area of the community. I just think that's a non-starter. That's why we elect y'all to make those choices.
Right. Yeah, I feel that that is a concern. And if it's building a bridge that's going to cost $23 million, that makes sense to me. But having a package that has several projects, each of them have different varying dollar request for whatever here's this one's for design, this one's for engineering, this one's for right-of-way purchase. Well, I think that's confusing and misleading to voters. But if you have, we need a bridge on Allsbury, and that's how much it's going to cost, and we need, that if we truly had control of 174 and we were looking at the entire expansion, well, that's going to cost this much. Putting that out to voters and being clear and concise about what we intend to do with those funds. I just don't know the level of transparency. And my fear is, okay, there's some ambiguity with the streets, with the public safety piece. There will be turnover. There's turnover in leadership at the city level. There will be turnover on council.
No, you'll be there forever.
No, sir. So in 3 years, if we have a completely different council, what if they have a different perspective of what streets or what things should be done? It's not part of these needs for the police department are necessary, but it's not. The plan, if you look at when we plan to pull out some of the requests to go out for bonds, it's not immediate. So will those needs change in 3 years? And that's really why I think I'd like to look at a plan and tell me thoroughly what you need, and let's plan accordingly so that the police department knows what's coming, so that they can use those tools to recruit. Hey, we're going to have adequate training, and this is what it's going to look like. But right now, I just feel like there's some ambiguity. And something else I haven't even mentioned is currently communications is in the police department building, and we know that they're out of space. And the bond is just vague language of a police department expansion. But specifically, I have concerns of, are we truly meeting the need? We just took on, we committed ourselves to taking on medical transport.
I was going to ask you about that after the commercial break, because apparently there's some conversation about that as well.
Sure. So we know that this is a major commitment. We know they're going to need additional staff. We know that they're already limited on the space that they have. And so are we going to build them what they need? These are questions that I have that are outstanding. And so I can't, in good faith, look at a voter and say, I have the answers, because I don't. I still have questions about where are some of these things. But I'll promise you this, whether it gets voted down or whether it's approved, I still have work to do, and I'm continuing that work. I've asked for the funds to be considered from council to have this study to understand what our options are as far as the jail. And we need to look at where are we growing as a city and all of the public safety needs, so that we know that we're spending our dollars in the smartest way and utilizing what we have. And I just would have been more for a more concise and smaller dollar amount. This is the largest bond package in our history.
Really? I thought there was one that was larger.
It wasn't.
Okay.
No, this is the largest.
One last question before the commercial break. Sherry Scott asked, why was this rushed? Does it seem rushed to you?
Yeah.
Okay. Why do you think that is?
Because we're trying to we're trying to meet this May election date. And that's another piece of, like, if we're fully vetting and we're thoroughly, researching everything, what's the hurry? I just want more information, can't hurt. And it was this idea that we had to make the May election, and you have certain date, you have to call for that election by February 18th in order to get it.
February, so it's already been called for first Saturday in May.
Right.
Can it be postponed to November?
No, this election is in process. It's going forward. Okay, so it was passed.
Okay, so we're going to have an election in May.
We're having an election in May. And I'm not at all saying that the projects aren't worthy. I'm not at all saying that, citizens are going to tell us what they want us to do. And there's tons of great information on the city's website. The communications department has put together some pamphlets, and I encourage voters to read through it all and tell us what you think. But here's the deal. We don't just get one bite at this apple. If it fails, we can come back. We can do this legwork, and we can present it possibly in a way that is more digestible, more clear, more concise, smaller numbers. Maybe we do this, this May, and then we look at it, we take some other projects that extend into the following May. The downside about having a November election, which is a hesitation, it's like you try to aim for May because November elections cost more, and you have to contract with the counties, both Tarrant and Johnson. And so there's confusion in voters on, that's when you have to go to your precinct to vote. You have to go to the sub courthouse, versus if we hold it in May, we can host it.
At City Hall, right?
This year we moved it.
Oh, okay.
So going forward, our plan is to have local elections at the senior center because it's easier access. Once the plaza was built, it took away that front easy access parking straight into City Hall. So there's confusion about where to park, and it can sometimes be difficult for citizens to.
Probably a lot of the people that work those elections are senior citizens, so maybe so it helps.
Yeah, so it's considered. And so it'll be relocated to the senior center, which will be great. Easy access, easy parking.
Okay, I was just checking out somebody's making a comment, but anyway, I'm going to go ahead and run through these commercials, and I'm going to ask you maybe a couple follow-up questions on the bond, and also ask about the ambulance services, and about this proposal Mr. Stanford threw out about a month ago about changing our liquor laws.
Okay.
All right, but thank you to the sponsors who make this possible. Otto at Our Place, we were conversing this morning. He's giving me a good idea about expanding my social media reach and my vast empire. I'm learning as I go on this thing, I tell you. But Our Place, you probably take the kids there quite often, I would imagine.
We like it.
You like it. Well, it's also a very
the Minnie Mouse
place.
Pancake.
That Minnie Mouse.
Well, has whipped cream.
I go for the chicken fried steak or the breakfast, even though I'm not supposed to do that too often.
And I always leave with a slice of pie.
There you go. Our Place Restaurant. Thank you, Otto. Also, this is one reason why the liquor business came up is one of the sponsors, Chris Notaboom, was talking about this. He was on the show about 6 months ago before they opened up. And, we're talking about this. But anyway, they're having their grand opening on April 1st. And they've been open, and people say, what is every grand opening? No, it's a special thing. It's like inaugurating. It's like a christening, whatever you want to call it. But anyway, he was telling me earlier some of the things that are going on that the Dumbarton Tobacco and Trust and the Matilda Cigars will be sponsoring this. Is going to have live music. I believe Jordan DeWald to be playing his new album. I got
You mean Brock? Brock DeWalt.
I do that all the time, don't I, Taylor? It's the old man thing. I get Jordan's husband,
okay.
Brock DeWald, will be playing his a new album, and we're tentatively have he and Jordan. That's why I was thinking about this. It's going to be on the show about a month, and they're going to play some of their songs.
Cool.
Yeah, but I'll talk to you more about it. But he's got a big grand opening coming up, and so April 1st, put that on your calendar. Also, Antonio Basallo and Point of Sales Operations, Proactive Payment Solutions. I'm going to have him on April 9th, which is a Saturday. He has a very interesting story. More than just his business we'll be talking about. We're talking about his life story. It's very interesting. So Proactive Payment Solutions, I'm looking forward to the conversation. But if you want to look about point of sales operations and the best rates and whatnot, check out proactivepaymentsolution.com, and it'll help you with that. And if you want to make your home a smart home, if you want to integrate your data on your phone, you want to have all this at a very convenient location in one spot, migrate your data to one place, Beagles Technology Solutions with Payne Beagles will take care of that. So call 817-944-3572 or hit beaglestech.com. And he also does aerial videography. Does City of Burleson do that? Does it have a drone that takes video?
The police departments have drones.
Well, if the city needs one, that's the guy to talk to. You contract with Payne. He like Antonio are both BHS graduates, and so they're Burleson's own. Also, Tiffany over at TexasLifeMagazine.com. Local Life. Thank you. What you think this is? Alzheimer's is not fun.
Wow.
I know. I'm getting older.
What I think is so cool is that she's expanded to a full-size magazine.
Oh, yes, she was on the show about 2 weeks ago, and she showed me the whole thing, and it was great.
It's really pretty.
For us old men, it was easier to read. And
I love reading those kind of local articles, and I think that's something we miss with that not having papers anymore.
Yeah. I invite you to go back to the one she had in October. There's a really good article about a local podcaster. Anyway, locallifemagazinetx.com, and the new issue.
Who was that?
Yeah. Look, it was you had your picture in it too, and it was like it took all the attention away. It's like all these girls were texting, "Hey,
okay."
They said, "What's his status, Mr. Allard? And what's his situation?" And all this other stuff. And like,
Oh my God.
I said, "No, he's dedicated to his technology." Sorry, girls.
Okay.
Okay. Locallifemagazinetx.com, but the new magazine will be out in about 10 days. And then lastly, Burleson Radio, Live 365, your voice, your station. Playing a lot of the older stuff. I kind of narrowed down the playlist because I thought I was trying to be all things to all people, but I'm just going to play what I like. And there you go. And you'll like it too, I hope. Anyway, here's the drill. Also, one last thing I forgot. Also, April 2nd, our first farmer's market.
Yes.
Yes, I'm looking forward to that quite a bit.
Me too.
I had him on last Thursday. Chaz won last Thursday.
I listened in.
Yeah, thank you. I need the listeners. But they had, it's going to be great. I think it's going to be even bigger than before.
I agree. It's grown from, I've been a long time customer of the farmer's market. Mm-hmm. It's grown from like 6 vendors to, I was shopping them when they were in the parking lot to they have a wait list now of vendors that want to participate.
Oh, sure.
But my favorite is it just opens up the opportunity for some of those micro businesses. You create something in your home and it's not necessarily feasible to have a storefront, but it gets you in front of people. And a lot of times that's how they make their ends meet.
And they need a point of sales operation. And talk to Antonio. But anyway, but also what I like is he also has space for the nonprofits. I had a young lady on yesterday for Safe Place.
Yes.
All right. Yeah. And she and Chaz are going to talk. I've made the connection for them, and they're going to talk. And that's a way that she or maybe Jessica Reams can get fitability out there in front of the people and things like that.
Jessica's taught classes. I've seen ASD out there.
They're going to be on Monday on the show.
That's awesome.
The Center for ASD, Lisa Boltinghouse and Bianca Lowry.
Yeah.
So, and now I got a very busy week. I have
I saw your upcoming list.
Mary Slaney and Joni Vanoy on Thursday and the mayor on Tuesday. And
2 huge advocates for Old Town and the mayor have
it's
lots
gonna be
of
interesting
information
week.
to share.
Yeah, and as far as like who voted yes and who voted no on the bonds, I'm sure both sides are operating in good faith. All right, because what if you could? Why would they vote yes? I mean, they had to have the reasons, and there are good reasons, I'm sure. They just see, is it just because they see the need that so acutely? That they just think we need to move as fast as we can and not let this get away from us?
I definitely don't want to speak for any
Right,
other
right,
council
not-
members, but
right.
that would be, I mean, like,
But
I know that there's a need. I'm not oblivious to, we need the 174 expansion. We need East Renfro's issues to be addressed. I understand, police department needs space. We will need a station 4, but I'm just in the way we particularly packaged this one, was it the best way, or were we just trying to get something before the voters so that they feel, so
I'm just giving them credit as you are, that the people that are in support of this are operating in good faith. I think you've explained your situation, your stance quite well, and you've given a lot of people a lot of things to think about. If the accesses show, which I hope they do, of course, I think you've given them a lot of reasons to think, well, that there's a good reason to give this a lot more consideration. I mean, you explained yourself quite well.
And here's the deal. We can come back out.
Right.
If this fails, it's not the only bite of the apple. We can come back. We can repackage this. We can come back and maybe identify in smaller dollar amounts, in smaller, more defined, I won't say smaller projects, but just more defined projects. Like, let's be purposeful in what we put toward the voters so that we try and minimize how much confusion there is. But I will tell you this, if it passes, I still have the due diligence, and I will push forward for all the information that I can and make the best decisions for this community. While I'm up there, that's in every item I look at. It's always, my thought is, what's best for us as a town? I don't have any reason to take something and there's nothing I'm personally gaining from any particular vote. It's about, I'm looking out for our whole town, and we're growing fast. We need to be smart about how we use our money. We need to leverage the funds appropriately. There is a role that debt plays, and we have to, just be smart about how we go about it.
Well, I really appreciate you coming on here and explaining it that well, because this is a whole lot better than just people making assumptions,
Sure.
or people, going on half information. I mean, you explained quite well some real things to think about. If it is coming to a vote, as you said. Okay, so
we're voting on it in
Right.
May, and I encourage, get out and vote. Tell us what you think.
And
But
if it
don't
passes,
just stop there. Come to council meetings. Write us emails. There's a button on our website that says contact council, and all of us get that email, or email us individually. I am more than happy. I'm not always the best, and I get, I feel like I'm letting citizens down in some regard of sitting and putting out my thoughts in writing on Facebook, but I'm not always the best about that. Sometimes I'll write, and then I delete half of it. I'm like, okay, I don't know if I'm getting my point, or is this going to be misconstrued, but I am willing to sit down for coffee. I am willing to meet you in the plaza, and let's just talk about issues. I can tell you on any vote why I voted a certain way, and that's my responsibility to the citizens that put me there. To be able to explain why I feel a certain way about anything, but I will tell you that I'm always looking out for the interest of our city as a whole.
Well, unfortunately, I don't have a vote, and maybe fortunately, I don't know, because I also don't have to pay the taxes to be able to vote. But the point that I think people should understand as we close this issue out is that they need to have full information about what they're voting for, because they're going to be ones paying for it. I guess indirectly I'll be paying for it, through higher property tax. I do all my shopping in Burleson practically.
There you go.
So yeah, I'll be paying for it indirectly, but I'm just saying that people need to understand.
Right.
And they need to understand the issues. Particularly, a no vote sometimes can be misconstrued,
Right.
And they need to know that there are legitimate reasons
Right.
to at least have pause before you hit the voting button, so to speak. So, and another thing, we briefly, Mr. Stanford brought up about a month ago, I believe, changing the liquor laws to allow local liquor stores here, which, people, I guess, when they envision liquor stores, they think of, cut rate spelled with a K, down some cheesy part of town where they're selling cheap junk.
Sure.
That's not what I'm thinking of when I think of a liquor store.
What are you thinking of, Mr. Allard?
Total Wine.
Hear ya.
Something like that. Some nice joint that's well lit that you can take your mother into.
Sure.
That you won't be ashamed to, you have to, sneak out the back. No, I'm thinking of Total Wine because to me, it's disingenuous for me to say, oh, we don't want liquor stores in Burleson,
Right.
but I'll drive to Fort Worth.
Right.
And get what I want.
But I want your money here.
Right.
Keep spending in Burleson.
I'm not a heavy duty drinker.
Right.
They say you're going to boycott Russian vodka. Hey, okay. I'll do it. I don't like vodka, so I'll be glad to join the cause. But the point is that it's not really just a matter of convenience for me to go get a bottle of whatever, or somebody to go get, drink mixes and whatnot. It's really it's for the restaurants.
I know. That's really what I've been educating myself on. I've visited with Alex Phillips, who's our economic development director, and I've visited with some businesses around town. And what I have learned is the impact on them. They are restricted by state law that they have to purchase their alcohol in Johnson County. So their two options are Rio Vista or Alvarado.
Right. Yeah, right.
And they know, those stores know that these entities had no other place to shop. So there's no incentive for them to wholesale or make deals or discounts. So these restaurants and businesses locally are having to purchase their alcohol at off the shelf prices.
Right.
And then they have to pass that on to their consumers. And so that has really been interesting to me. And I've really been educating myself on that and the impact that it is on our local businesses. But also, as our city grows, I'm picturing, you can anticipate that 731 is going to be a lot like Bryant Irving. I mean, the capacity, the traffic from through our town, Crowley, it's a great thoroughfare, and we're going to see a lot of growth there. HEB is a prime example. There's never a time when that parking lot is not full.
Exactly.
And so I'm picturing the growth that we can see there is going to be a lot like that Overton Ridge, Bryant Irving area. And so if this is something that the voters would consider, it will open up a lot of possibility for places like Total Wine. I have no doubt that some venture like that would look at us then.
Oh, absolutely. They would. They'd be knocking the door down because it's all the growth in this area. Chris Snowdeboom was on the show in November, and he was the first that alerted me that you have to buy the liquor within the county. I'm like, what do you mean? That doesn't make any sense. But I'm just thinking, wow, that guy down in Alvarado at Liquor Depot must be making out like a bootlegger because he's basically got a monopoly on the market. I mean, who goes to Rio Vista for anything? I mean, But anyway, sorry guys. But anyway, the point is that you have this situation where that we are all forced, not just as individual consumers, but as our restaurants, to go outside the county. Miss Scott says, go to Costco.
Costco. You get your liquor store, and I get to shop. I agree, Miss Sherry. I love Costco. Wouldn't that be awesome if they considered us? I think
they are,
just the way we're growing.
I thought they were, but you don't know better than I would, I suppose. But I thought they were looking at us at least.
That's an opportunity for Alex Felix to come visit you. And
well,
tell you
I'm going to ask him on the show within the month or so.
Cool.
He's very, very discreet. To say, hey, is it true we're getting this? I really can't say. And
well, yeah, because we can't.
The day after he has a show is when they announce time, and Razoo's like, dadgummit, you could have said that on my show.
Well, it had to go before Torchy's. Torchy's is coming.
Bad news.
Oh, because you're going to spend a lot of money there?
Yes, I'll be there every single day.
Really?
I love a Torchy's taco.
I've never been there, but I'm sure my son loves it. So when he's in town, I bet we go. But the thing back to the liquor thing is that I think this is going to be one of those things that, first of all, the city council cannot just say we're going to have liquor stores.
We cannot.
There's a referendum involved.
It has to have. We have to have an election, a referendum, and it has to be. So many signatures have to be collected to request said referendum. So I think
you said it was a lot too.
It's a lot. Miss Amanda, our city secretary, can tell you more specific number, but it's based off the last gubernatorial election. So the number of voters that participated in the last gubernatorial election, it's a certain percentage of that. So that number is about to change come this November. However many of our citizens vote in the gubernatorial election, there will be a certain percentage of them that is required to sign to participate in the signature collection. And then the city secretary's office has a certain amount of days that she has to verify that they're all registered voters. And so it's quite a process. And I do know a number of citizens really would like to see this happen. So I think the support and the legwork volunteers may be there. I'm torn on it. I just want to make sure if we do this, we do it correctly.
Right.
I'm looking into, can we set zones and parameters for where these?
Sure, you can.
Where these stores? I'm looking into it.
Okay.
I'm not going to make any promises, but I want to understand fully before we commit ourselves to something like this. Can we set, restrictions on where these establishments can go? Because there's some, older strip malls and things. Do we really want a seedy bar in,
and
some
that's
of them?
what I'm afraid it's going to be portrayed as if we have a vote that we're going to all of a sudden have, Cooter Browns all over the place. Cooter Browns has a certain clientele, and they're welcome to it, but it's a rough crowd. We don't want that right next to the school, I guess, or whatever. Well,
and I know
the teachers wouldn't mind that, but
the state may have, I know the state has certain restrictions about how close a school can be located to a place that sells alcohol, but still, just is the corridor of 174 and maybe 731 the best for those? I just want to make sure that we're fully vetting. Again, like I like to look at more information can never hurt. I want to look at all the options. What are all the possibilities that we can see? But I will, of course, again, support whatever the voters decide. And do my due diligence.
Personally hope it does come to vote and it does pass. I remember back in 2000, I believe 9 it was, when we changed some of the laws and allowed for HEB and frescoes and Mambos.
The sale of beer and liquor, or wine, yes.
Right, and drinks at the bar and all this. And
made a difference.
Now, maybe somebody could show me stats that saying that certain things have gone up, like, drunken-related accidents or whatever. But I think by and large, it's been a benefit to the community.
I think, it helped us get HEB.
Oh, yes. That's right there. Is worth it right there. And Kroger. And, these nice places like Chris Notaboom's place.
Sure.
Or American Revelry. And, we can name several. I do think that this is one of those issues that potentially could be misportrayed and be one of those divisive issues that, unfortunately, Burleson has had in the past. Right. They're going to portray it as, are we going to allow a bunch of drunkenness and hedonism and all this other stuff here? And I just don't think that's what it's about.
That would not be, I don't believe that that's the intent. And
there's certain
really
people in this community that would portray it that way because they like that. They're that kind.
And it'll just be an education, what can we see? What's the growth potential for our community if this passes? And, what kind of businesses could we see and do our best to recruit, right? We say, hey, have you looked at us? And here's the other thing to think about. If we don't, that's brought to my attention. If we don't do this and a neighboring city that starts with a C down the road does it before us, well, then does that mean that
Joshua puts it right on the edge of town?
Does that mean, that they have the potential to recruit some of those businesses that we could have?
Yes.
I don't know.
I don't know exactly what it means.
These are all the things I'm weighing, and I'm sure all the citizens who, if this comes, and I know it is, I know there's a lot of people putting in some legwork for this, so we'll see.
Well, I may have to have them, pro and cons on the show, but I remember in 2009, it also divided the churches. The older folks in my church, First Baptist, were opposed to it. The younger guys, were a little bit more accepting of it. I remember at Deacon's meeting, a couple of staff members said, we need to work against this vote. And all the older men are going, harumph, you're absolutely right. And the younger deacons like myself, like, wait, I like Chili's. I've seen you there,
Right.
It's kind of like the old joke about Baptists, they don't recognize the Pope, the Quran, or each other at the liquor store. And so I just don't want to see that happen again.
I hope not.
I don't want to be misportrayed and say that if you vote in favor of this and you're voting in favor of, lewd, drunken behavior.
Right. That's not. Yeah.
That's nuts. Because I don't think that's happened in our town with what we have now. But anyway, we're running out of time a little bit. I do want to ask you, you've been on the council 10 months. How's your experience been?
It's been good.
Have you had any experiences you could have done without?
Sure.
Like people maybe not being as nice to you as they should?
No, I just wish we could debate and deliberate the issues and not, and it not be about people. That would be my, I took part in, there's a local photographer who does a bee project, and it's about empowerment. And
I know, I'm looking at the questions on the board there.
Okay. And so my word that I picked was lead. And I picked it because I said I wanted, this year I'm really focusing on how I lead and being the type of leader that I want to be. I want to lead with conviction, and I want to lead in a way that inspires others. And I've really been thinking about this, and I want to lead in a way that encourages my children. Audrey watches me. We subscribe to these highlights magazines that have puzzles, and one was like a crossword puzzle about careers, and then on the next page it said, draw yourself in your future career. And Audrey drew herself behind a desk, and I said, oh, what are you? And she said, well, I'm the mayor. So
there you go.
So I know my kids are watching. I know neighbor kids are watching. I know that my neighbors and the moms that I'm volunteering with in my daughter's school, and I know people are watching, and I want to set an example, and I want to inspire people to be involved, whether that's at an elected level or a volunteer level on a board, whatever it may be. But I want to work with my colleagues, and I'm trying, and I recognize that I play a role, and I'm trying to be the best servant leader that I can be, and in every decision that I'm making, that I'm truly weighing the pros and cons and digging into the details, and representing my town, my hometown, in a way that makes us proud, and in a way that I can stand behind a vote and say, look, this is why I did or I didn't support X, Y, and Z. And I'm more than willing to explain any of those. Anyone, my cell phone number's on my card, my cell phone number is listed on the city's website. Reach out to me, text me, reach out to me on Messenger, and I'm available for coffee, for sitting in the plaza, for visiting over the phone, whatever it may be. But I know that I'm very fortunate. My family's so supportive. My daughter is continuously proud of me. She asks.
She's about 7, is that right?
She's turned 7 in May.
Okay.
Crazy. So she's asked numerous times if to her daddy, can we go see mom at work? And he says, well, first of all, they go way past your bedtime. And second, you can't run around in there. And she's really determined. She really wants to come to a meeting. And last night she was at my parents' for dinner. And then my mom brought the kids home, bathed and ready for bed. But she said this morning, Mom, Papa watches you on the computer, and I sat in there and watched with him, and I listened to the things that you were saying. And so I know people are listening, and I know what I say can make a difference in the way somebody interprets something, understands something. And so it's important that I do my work, and I do it well and thoroughly. And so I've got lots of support. My husband supports me, fortunately. My parents are tremendous help. They take the kids and pick them up regularly if I'm in a meeting or I can't make something fast enough. And it just takes a whole village, right?
Right.
And this community that has watched me grow up and taught me or mentored me along the way. It's wonderful how this community comes together. And I'm open for constructive criticism. And I think
that's good. I'm glad to hear that you're getting mostly good reception, response, treatment. I'm glad to hear that's been a good experience for you so far, because the election was tough enough. The campaign, we don't need to do that again. So one last question, I suppose. In a couple of years, are you going to prefer the title Madam Mayor or Ms. Mayor? I don't know. Which are you going to want?
God willing, we'll see.
Right.
If he believes that that's the path for me, then I'll stay the course. But as long as I'm doing something that makes a difference in this community, I'll keep at it.
Well, I think you're doing fantastic. Sarah Carlson says it's a tough job and you're doing great. Bill Janish says that he thinks you're going to be mayor one day. That remains, that'll have to play itself out. I'm quite sure. But I could tell you from what I've seen on the streams that Sarah puts on and everything, all of the counts, you've been a superior council member.
Thank you.
You're everything that the people who voted for you thought you'd be.
Thank you.
And even if you want choice A and I'm thinking I want choice B, you make me want to reconsider my choices because of your diligence and your homework that you've done on it. Because my first inclination when I heard the bond, well, we need these things,
right?
And then after hearing you talk about it and explain, I said, wait a minute, if I had a vote, I really need to look into this more than I
do that. I'm encouraging everyone. There's lots of materials available. Read through it. We're going to do what the voters tell us that we need to do. And if it passes, we've got work to do. If it fails, we've got work to do. Either way, I'm not, the work hasn't stopped, and I'm not done. I'm going to continue to do my due diligence, ask tons of questions. I'm becoming notorious for that. People know she asks a lot of questions.
That's what you were taught to do.
That's what I was put there to do. And so I want to make sure that we're thorough. And then anytime we're spending taxpayer dollars, that we have thoroughly thought it out, and we're doing and using our resources to the best in the smartest way that we can.
Well, I hope you do well in the remainder of your tenure, and for our sake, I hope you continue your tenure.
Thank you, sir.
And because
I'd be honored.
We need you on city council. We need you in city involvement because you were asking the questions that we didn't even know we needed to be asked. To tell you the truth, when I looked at a little bit of the bond and discussed with a couple of people, and I had a general idea what your stance was, your concerns were, that was not fully fleshed out and it wasn't detailed. Now I have a lot to think about.
Sure.
And, we'll see what the voters say, right?
Right. That's
and,
right.
And one way or the other, I'm sure you'll serve in that capacity.
And one way or the other, the work doesn't stop. We keep going. We find new, if this doesn't pass, we repackage and we come back. That's the benefit is we're not done just because this isn't an end all be all. It's
well, if it does go down, we are going to have another vote like this because the needs aren't going away.
Right. The needs are here. So we just need to figure out what's the best way to address them. Is it, do we pay cash for some of these smaller amounts? Do we, do we put forward to the voters the amounts that are larger? And anyway, we'll see. And I'm going to listen to the voters as always and tell us what you think. We don't know unless you tell us. And bring forward those issues, particularly if you have roads that we're not addressing, whatever it may be. Let us look into it, and that's what we're here for. And that's the benefit of there being 7 of us, right? We all look at things from different perspectives. We all bring something different to the table, and we're all going to see things in a little bit different light. And that's the benefit of having a board of 7 and not just one single person making all these decisions, because there's just so many different ways of looking at things.
Well, I'm going to run through the sponsors, and I'll give you the last word and tell us what you want us to know about. Well, whatever you want us to know. Anyway, thank you, Daniel, CrossFit Burleson. Hope you're doing well. Hope Amber and the kids are doing well. Thank you for your sponsorship. Thank you, Shandy, for your sponsorship. Hope Ron and the kids are doing well. And y'all are doing really well in the real estate. I know that things are busy, as we've been discussing here. Also, thank you, Rex Russell. We're both still in mourning, though. See, our fighting Bears went down on Saturday, so we're a little bit, grieving. But there you are. They tell me that there are more important things in life than sports, and I'm trying to get my head around that. But anyway, myfinancialbox.com. Hit the link and get to know him, see what he got going on. Also, thank you to Kimmy. I'll see you tomorrow. Dr. V, 817-789-1622 for weight loss and maintenance. Thank you to Gayla. It's Ring for Spring and Mother's Day. So go over there to the 3rd floor of the Windmiller Building and check out our inventory, or you want to get something repaired as a gift for Mom.
Or designed.
The whole 9 yards.
The whole 9 yards. She can help you out.
Yeah, she's very sweet too. Thank you to Michelle Humphrey of HotWorks. We have a testimonial for you right here that it works if you work the system. That's kind of her slogan at B9. It's hotter than average, and she's a real.
It's a fun, different style of workout.
She's been on the show a couple of times. She very much is an entrepreneur, and that's what we talk about, not just the workout itself.
Sure, I've heard. Yeah,
but she's very
business minded.
Yeah, that's the word I'm thinking. I'm trying, very diligent, very astute. Speaking of astute, Otto has people that are astute that work for him. Sorry,
They're like
Otto.
a family there.
Well, his son runs it.
It's so fun.
Otto just comes up and shows up like a celebrity, the maitre d'.
That's true. He takes pictures.
It's like having Dean Martin.
He walks in. Yeah.
And says, "Oh yeah, you want more water? Water over here, table. Yeah, there you go."
The best part is it's just one of those restaurants where people remember, oh, I know how you like your coffee. Leave room for Victoria's milk.
Yeah.
It's just precious. I love those, and we're fortunate in Burleson to have a number of those kind of places. I love it.
He's also very generous. He's not just this show he sponsors, but he also is helping out with a couple other endeavors. So
a number of things locally. Yeah, he's always a good supporter of this town.
Thank you to Chris, who also is a supporter of his town. April 1st will be his grand opening. He's got lots going on. He has a great humidor. And if you don't know what your man in life smokes or your woman in your life smokes,
I really just like to sit in there and smell it. Is that weird?
Well, no.
I just want to sit there with a book.
No, that's a place to do it because you're going to be able to have a nice quiet time. It isn't like some sports bar. Now they'll have the ball games on the TV, but that sounds off, and they have jazz in the background, and it's a good place to go. And if you don't know what they want, you can go get them a gift certificate. You don't smoke cigars, so do you?
I don't.
Does Philip?
No.
Well, maybe we'll learn how. And so, anyway, and then also thank you to Antonio. We'll see you on April 9th over at proactivepaymentsolutions.com with the point of sales operations, and I'm looking forward to that show. Paying Beagles over at Beagles Technology Solutions. Had his wife on about a month ago. She works for the Alzheimer's Association, and she was very sweet and very well spoken. It was a good show. Beagles Technology Solutions. 817-944-3572 or beaglestech.com. Tiffany Griffin with locallifetx.com, or if you can't wait, you can look on the website, but their magazine will be out, that new fold-out system, which has gotten nothing but rave reviews. I've had several people, Chaz was telling me about, Chaz Forrester was saying it was one of his, he really liked what he saw. And if you're looking to advertise in this area, I definitely would talk to Tiffany. And also Live 365. I tell you right. Live 365 Burleson Radio, playing my favorite hits. How's that for a motto, Taylor? Yeah, it's great, huh? Okay. And also, remind you, April 2nd is the farmers market. So next week on Monday, I'm going to have the Center for ASD with Lisa Bolting and Allison Bialkin-Lowry. Tuesday, we're going to have the mayor. And it's my understanding he was one of the 4 that voted for it.
Yes.
So we'll have his perspective.
I think that's wonderful.
Yeah, and I'm sure he'll have his reasons.
Sure.
And so there'll be a good conversation to have. So the listeners of my vast listening audience can get both sides of the argument, so to speak. So I look forward to that. And then next Thursday, a week from Thursday, 31st, we're going to have Mary and Joni. That's going to be pretty good.
That'll be fun.
Yeah. And then Friday.
Really enjoy both of those ladies.
Thursday, normally we have a show, but I have an appointment of sorts. So Friday, I'm just going to get there and probably just rant. Joe Biden gives me a lot of material. I couldn't help myself. At least one dig. So.
I don't envy that high of office. That's for sure.
Oh, we're not going to call you Madam President one day?
No, sir.
And Philip to be the first husband or whatever they call him?
I don't think I could take that level. I think you might be missing a couple of marbles if you pursue that high of office, because not anyone really sane can go for it.
Well, it seems to me that even at the local level, you might have a few wires that need to be reattached, because it can get pretty tense. But but anyway, you tell us.
I want to make a couple of announcements, if you don't mind.
No,
all right,
that's your time. This is
special bond election will be held on May 7th at the Senior Center on Johnson. So be looking for that information. As I mentioned, you can visit our website, burlesontx.com. There's a whole, up across the top, there's a banner that says 2022 bond election information. You can look at Proposition A for the public infrastructure, Proposition B for the public safety facilities. I also want to really express my gratitude to the volunteer bond committee members that looked at these items and had great discussions from what I'm told. And I truly believe that they, that we're crammed with a lot of information in a short amount of time. And I'm truly appreciative of all that they did and the chairwoman who led that committee. I'm really proud that.
Who's the chairwoman?
It was Deanne Cheatham.
I know the name from Facebook, and she's also been on, a correspondent on this show, so I know you talk about it. I don't know if you've ever met in person. I had a text during the show just recently, just a few minutes ago. Are you going to be able to vote individually for these 3 things, or one collective package?
2 different propositions, 2 different votes. So you can vote on Proposition A on its own, which is the public infrastructure, the streets, and Proposition B is public safety.
So you can vote for one and maybe not the other.
Correct.
Which I see. Okay, well, that makes sense. Okay, good. I'm glad, because when we did school bonds,
it's one or nothing.
Oh, yeah, it's the whole thing. And so you'd slide, we got to have a, practice facility for our left-handed drill team football players. And, they'd have all this elaborate stuff. But we also have to have the schools. I remember okay. But, I'm just ranting.
I understand.
Yeah, okay.
What was my other announcement? I've got one for you. There's a citizen satisfactory survey. And so let us know. It's going to be closing out soon. I was trying to find that, and I don't. Let's see. Citizen survey. Where did you go? But it will be, the city wants to hear from our citizens. So there's a survey. It's got a link straight from our website. I strongly encourage you to go. Let us know how we're doing. What can we be doing better? What are we not addressing? Like I mentioned before, we don't always know about a need or a project or a concern or something positive that's going on unless we hear from the citizens. So please let us know and take advantage of those links to email council or email us individually or contact us. Like I said, my cell phone number's listed on the website. Text me, call me. I'm available.
Well, I appreciate you being here. I really am glad you're able to explain this so well and very clearly what the options are and what the concerns are. Because, a lot of people are kind of vaguely aware of what's going on. I mean, I didn't know much about the bond issue until Sarah Carlson kind of lightened me on it. I knew something like that was in the works, but I didn't know the details till more recently. So I appreciate
Mr. Allard,
you being.
thank you for having me.
It's always a great show. We're going to have you again, I'm sure, in a few months.
Yeah, we'll love that.
All right. Maybe we'll talk about politics right before the election.
Right before?
Yeah.
Oh, joy.
Thank you, Taylor, and we'll be seeing you all
as always
on Friday.